Okay. Tech packs are due. We're back.
First
2025.
post episode of the year.
Bang.
2025.
Who knew? Who
Yeah.
thought we'd be back?
Who knew?
But we will be here. I have never felt more energy to keep doing this podcast than I feel right now. The overall consensus is keep going, keep firing away, and keep giving us the content. So we will. And man, the guest list I feel like is getting pretty juicy.
Yeah. People
and
want
we're
to be
getting
on.
right. We're getting like I would say some good. I don't want to give away too much. Just say, like there's stuff like I'm starting to hold some of the cards. Like I think last year I was like, whatever, screw it. Like I don't know if this is gonna last, so I'm just gonna throw out whatever to get people to watch. But now I'm like, hold on, maybe we shouldn't tell people about this one yet.
Yeah.
Like
Just know it's gonna be fun and know we're gonna have some sweet people on. Daniel's sort of opened the floodgates in there, so we got all sorts of people in our DMs that we're excited to have on.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, yeah, let's let's talk it up. And so so it should be good. We're thinking through everything from segments now to oh man, I might be wearing shoes at some point and reviewing them. Who knows? I mean,
live on feet cam.
Yeah, might try some of that. Basically, yeah, I think there's some kind of response to someone within footwear talking about footwear and being candid about it. And I think there's something also nice about how raw like this all feels. And it is to a large extent. A lot of the things that we say we're hearing for the first time from each other. So it's pretty funny. I know we try to prep each other, but again, it's more like one of those things where we say like a few words and we'll like be like, yeah, that's cool. Don't talk much more about it. And we'll just kind of we'll make a note and be like, yep, that's fun. Talk about that, and we'll move forward. So that is all to say, like my to-do list has grown gigantically, and it's it's a lot to make a podcast. It's not easy, and to make something meaningful, I think, is even harder. And to keep it watchable and viewable and likable is also hard. So it's like it's a lot of stuff I haven't done before, but I love it. And I love talking. I love presenting information. So, and it's nice when you have Caulin. So everyone shout out Caulin. Caulin,
everybody, give us the feedback in the comments and keep sending us messages and telling us you like it and give us your thoughts, because Jake's right. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work to put this together. And Jake is working a full-time job as a footwear designer right now, and then has his family and everything. So he's doing a lot of work to bring us this. And I'm happy to be along for the ride, to be the surrogate learner of all the information here and to bounce questions back and forth. So
yeah, it is fun. Like Caulin is not an inexperienced designer. Like let's be clear. Like, but he does have a almost near photographic memory of shoes, and Nike and just product in general. So it's good. Like that's why I like having him around, is it's good. But there's also this thing of like, yeah, I've been in footwear for a while, and Caulin does have a shoe out.
Go check it out. Otishi, wear Otishi.
Yeah. So it's
barefoot gym shoe.
Yeah, barefoot gym shoe, like real modern, but he worked on the knit, which is so sick.
Yeah.
And
it was a super quick strike project. Like,
yeah.
So
that's awesome. And so it's like, it's all stuff for to have in the back pocket, to to, not impress people, but, to say like, yeah, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
So shout out Colin. That's great. Looks great. People are liking it. There's some shout outs going on. I've seen them, and it's always good when you can advance a brand, and super fun.
Yeah, I think we really elevated it. So I'm stoked on it.
Yeah.
It's just part of my story. It's part of how I'm learning and growing. And we got to talk about it. We just had Daniel Shirley on, the myth, the legend extraordinaire. And hearing his story was awesome. If you haven't listened to that podcast yet, please go back and watch the last episode and then come back here, because Daniel just knocked it out of the park. Some really great insights there.
Yeah, easily our most watched, most viewed, most listened to. We are on Spotify now, by the way. We were just on YouTube, but we are now on Spotify as well. And then as I learn how to do it, we will link up the other podcasts, but it's easy to do in Spotify, so we're getting it done. But yeah, talking about Daniel, man, it's actually the first time I've talked to him, and maybe like other than messaging, in about maybe 3 or 4 years, 5 years, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So like face to face, like it'd been a long time. But yeah, there's a lot of great insights. I mean, I reeled, I think, a good bit of them. And I'm going to continue as we continue down the line. I think I'm always going to dig back into that episode and pull stuff up. I mean, the whole put a swoosh on it thing is like sometimes the only funny. Gosh, as soon as he said it, like I'm sitting here thinking like, oh, I'm just listening. Like I'm listening to what he's saying. I'm trying to just not try to get ahead of myself and just like let him speak his mind.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I'm hearing these like one-liners, and I'm like, man, like that's gonna be great. Like,
yeah.
And I think I felt that often, and I think even I don't think you have to be a shoe designer to have felt some of that.
Yeah.
Where I think the swoosh gets used as like, I don't know, like a reason to click on something.
Yeah.
And so it's nice. Like, I mean, I didn't say it, so that's
it's funny because I got told kind of like the opposite once by E. Scott. Like I think every designer has experienced where it's like, oh, my shoe just like looks better with a swoosh.
Yeah.
But going back to like something Daniel said in the podcast was like, if you're not like pushing the future, if you're not designing shoes that are for the future, you're kind of just making garbage or whatever. Like I'm misquoting him, I'm sure, but like he mentioned like some form, some idea like that. And it's interesting because a lot of times when you push, like when I was at Pensole for New Balance, we were pushing some sketches, and I was working with E on something that I thought was really, really cool. And E kind of like leaned over to me and he's like, Colin, does this like really look like a New Balance though? He's like, does this really look like a New Balance? And he was like, he's like, what do you, he's like, this thing that you've sketched, this like idea, like, what does it actually look like? I was like, yeah, it kind of looks like a Nike. He's like, yeah, it looks like a Nike.
Dang.
So it's interesting because it also works the other way, because Nike does have, at least in certain decades and certain eras, there's like an overall aesthetic, a form, language that feels very Nike-esque. Yeah. So it also works both ways.
Yeah. What I did like that quote. I think that's the one thing I need to go back and clip as well, is he's like, like my Puma stuff shouldn't look like the On stuff, and it shouldn't look like the Nike stuff.
Yeah.
I think Puma and On could not be farther like apart. So maybe that's not, that's might be that hard to do. Like,
right. Well, and then like going from cleated to tennis, there's already sort of like almost like I wouldn't say like style, but there's almost like a format change.
Yeah.
Like a thought process change.
Oh yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But like there were so many good moments from Daniel's episode that like kind of just were like aha, moments.
Yeah. And I think we talked offline, but I think when as soon as he said he applied to 100 footwear jobs,
yeah,
I don't, Colin, we connected when I was early on applying to like outside of Brooks. And so I
Yeah.
was like
Hmm.
already knowing like, okay, I've exhausted this. I need to like go do something else.
Yep.
I think,
Yeah. How many
I
were
don't know,
you at?
maybe 30,
Yeah, I
but
was gonna say, yeah,
100?
like you did a lot. You did a lot, but it was like, yeah, it was, yeah, probably closer to
Right?
that 30 mark when we were talking.
That's like 100.
Hundreds a
Oh,
lot.
like
Yeah.
100 heartbreaks. Like think about that. Like,
Right. Well, and then like we're not even talking about like 100 right out of college, right? We're talking about like 100. He's already got like 3 years of like actual released product design under his belt,
right.
and
And for the biggest sportswear brand in the world.
exactly. So that just goes to show like how long the journey is and how difficult it can be.
Yeah.
So
And to
stay
dig
strong.
deep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, just keep going.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think I think there's some things that like he didn't say. Like he said to Colin and I like off camera, like that he felt like he had to leave Nike because like you'd think why would you leave Nike, but
Yeah.
he's told us like separately like I had to go like just because you don't want to get like industrial design's fun. But like
Hmm.
if you go and take your industrial design degree and you go to like Maytag,
Yeah.
or you
Yeah.
go to like Whirlpool, like
Hmm.
you become the refrigerator guy, or you become the whatever. And he really felt like he was becoming the sock guy,
Yeah.
which is just so crazy because like I feel like we have so much to give.
Yeah.
Like to get labeled something, like I would love to think that I could go be a fridge designer, like in pretty
Yeah.
not pretty easily, but I think the transition wouldn't be as clunky as people might think.
I mean, I feel like that's just the duty, the calling of being a designer in general, right? Is
Yeah.
that you're like this sort of jack of all trades, master of none. You know enough to be dangerous. Um, if you knew everything, you would be an engineer, right? Like
Yeah.
then you would only ever do what works. But then that's why like kind of that relationship, an engineer and a designer can like really push and make things different and make things interesting, right? And so,
Yep.
it's kind of this like design is sort of this calling to be an alchemist, to be able to
Yeah.
like make a shoe as well as you would make a refrigerator.
Yeah.
You know, so like for us to hear that Daniel was becoming the sock guy, it's like, no, you're having all this circular knit experience and
Yep.
flat knit experience, and like that's amazing. Like when I first took the industrial design position at Purple, I was worried because I talked to some of my footwear design friends, and I'll never forget. I talked to one of my friends named Scott Warnecki.
Right.
Shout out. He's at Lululemon right now, but I remember talking to him and being like, "Hey, like, is this the right move? Like, should I be doing this? Like, it's mattresses." And he was like, "Well, like, mattresses have foam, shoes have foam.
Yeah.
Mattresses have fabric, shoes have fabric." He's like, and then he said to me, "Innovation is innovation, baby."
Yeah.
And so, it's kind of that. Like, you're just collecting experience wherever you
Yeah.
go, and as a designer, you should be able to apply it everywhere.
Yeah. I would say also like if someone offers you a job and it's in writing and there's a contract in front of you, I mean, it doesn't come around all that often. Like,
Yeah, get that bag too. Chase that
yeah,
bag.
it doesn't hurt to like take something.
Right.
And if you turn around and leave in a couple months, that's whatever. I understand that sucks for like hiring people and all that stuff, but like, yeah. But all that is to say is like, come on, like there's been times where I have applied outside of footwear, especially at that time when I was like really transitioning and like I found out that footwear, getting a second job in footwear is as hard as the first one.
Yeah.
Which I
Yeah.
never really don't know why it didn't like hit. And so it's easy to be out of a footwear job for an extended amount of time. And so I think another thing, it made me grateful for the position I had.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, yeah, I started applying outside and I really felt like I got labeled the shoe guy. And I was
Yeah.
like, this is not cool. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I probably need to like brush up on SolidWorks or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
I could probably do some surfacing technique. I could learn grasshopper.
yeah, like, yeah, but just like give me a class and give me a little time and I'll probably get up to speed. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it was just really felt like, oh man, like there's this stigma behind footwear. But I'm like, look, like I'm making things that people want to wear. Like,
Yeah. And at such high volumes too. Like
yeah,
we were
like,
we were sort of talking about it offline. I said like it's interesting that like footwear designers or footwear design kind of gets this label as being like, especially if you come from industrial design. Like if you come from industrial design, like industrial designer and like automotive design is like
oh
right
yeah,
here, and then like footwear design is like here, right? And so it's interesting to me because I know so many people who were initially an automotive designer who have like found their home in footwear. They've
right,
gone from this kind of like upper echelon of industrial design. Like the way that I see it is like
yeah,
automotive or
yeah,
transportation design is
yeah,
like where the super talented people go, and you know those are where the high paying jobs are and all this other stuff, and it's like elite of elite.
yeah,
But some of them find their happy home in footwear, and so I just always found that interesting, that it's like
yeah,
if it's so bad to be the shoe, if you're labeling me the shoe guy, then like why are the elite of the elite also finding a space here, you know?
yeah. I mean, the best designers I've worked with were into car and transportation,
Yeah.
and then they were just like, footwear, like,
I
like,
think footwear you can be, there's a lot less regulation. I was talking to a
yeah,
motorcycle designer,
yeah,
and it's true, like there's a little bit of a cap on creativity a bit, because like, you know, regulations where like the quarter panel has to break or has to be certain height to pass crash testing and all this other stuff, whereas you know there is testing for footwear, and we talked about this kind of relationship with like a biomechanist telling you like where certain parts of a shoe need to be, and
yeah,
it kind of like doesn't necessarily limit your creativity, but it also puts kind of these guide rails up of like where you need to be creative,
right,
and those constraints are good. But like I think maybe people in automotive are so good, they're so imaginative that like kind of that sort of regulation and testing tends to be, you know, limiting too much, and footwear
right,
is maybe more of a creative release. I'm not sure. We need to get an
yeah.
automotive designer on. Let's talk to them about it.
Well, yeah, and then you think about how I think I don't know. It's hard for me to like really think 3 dimensional. And I think when you're automotive, you're just, at least this is what I think is going on. I don't know. But I imagine they're just constantly thinking about surface changes and
Mm-hmm.
movement
Yeah.
and what happens around, the bend, like
Yeah.
what happens on the other side, what happens around the bumper from
Mm-hmm.
the transition from the side to the bumper to the next side, like all those things, like how lines carry around, like matters to them.
Yeah.
And when you're just drawing a lateral side of a shoe, I think I get like kind of trapped in that little bit. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think 3D, I think Gravity Sketch, I think those programs are starting to break that a little bit. You're starting
Yeah.
to like, you can consider the whole shoe at one time. So I don't buy it. Not one bit. Like,
Yeah. We're not just shoe guys.
yeah, like I think I could handle it. I have had my definitely a number of tough meetings, and I have been through the ringer. So it's not like I believe it's probably akin to most design positions. So
Right. Right.
anyway,
Even though we're not just shoe guys, let's talk about shoes.
yeah. Caulin is getting good at keeping me in line because I can like really just take this thing and like if I have the wheel, there's no telling where we're going. So we thought like we're trying. I'm going to be honest with you guys. This is the part where I'm trying to be real clippable.
Mm.
I'm trying to be a real. I'm trying to be. This is an advertising moment for the
Yes,
show.
let us get the reel off really quick, so that we can contribute to your brain rot later. Okay.
Yes. So we are going to talk about this in a manner that we want to use it. But it is something that matters, and it's something we thought about doing. We did not do it, and now we're like, well, let's ironically do it 4 weeks into the year.
Yes.
We want to, and we probably should have decided this early December, but we want to live right now decide on our shoes of the year for 2024. And I'm going to make a little tech bags or do boom, shoe of the year. And do a Jake's pick, Colin pick.
Yep.
And we'll talk about stuff, and we might debate it a little bit. I'm sure Colin has his things and whatever. But I'm going to start with mine, because I am the senior of this game.
Drum roll.
So I really think it's not, I don't know if it's too easy, but I think the shoe of the year for 2024 was the AE1.
Yeah.
I think as far as high top, low top, whichever one, silhouette, iconic, like the honeycomb, dart, little side panel, the molded piece, how simple the upper behind the molded piece was,
right?
The undulating traction pattern, all this stuff, and then like top that off with like this cultural moment where Anthony Edwards like
was cooking,
had a year.
Yeah, he was cooking. I'm sorry, but also not sorry that Luca stopped you in your tracks. But
yeah, well, it's fine, and I think like it's fine that like he definitely came down a little bit, like he got stopped pretty hard, but that's all good. I just think like all of a sudden you have this guy and he's dancing around in these awesome shoes. And I think the advertising was good.
The advertising was solid.
Yeah.
I said this when we were talking off air about it, but it just harkens back to this like era of being just iconic. It's sort of out there. It's got this big movement. It's like there's movement. There's this large kind of iconic shape happening. When we were talking about it, I also mentioned the Harden, the latest Harden that also came out this last year, like has the same kind of emotion, like Adidas basketball. Congratulations, all flowers to you. I think that like you made 2 really iconic basketball shoes this year. The AE1 is super, super iconic. I had the good fortune of cutting it in half and getting some like wear test results from a friend. And so my rebuttal to this, my controversy is I think maybe it's not the most functional basketball shoe. Like it's not super breathable. It's not a super breathable basketball shoe. And I think the traction, at least from our wear tester, was like spotty.
I did have a chance to wear it and play in it. I do play basketball, and I would say I'm like above varsity level. Like I'm not.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I did get asked to play like a junior college, and I was like, I am transferring to BYU. Like, so I was on my way out the door when I got asked, but either way, I sucked until anyway. I had a basketball class that was like I got really intense. I got really focused on it, but no, I did the AE1 and I wore it once, and maybe I needed to size down.
Okay.
Maybe it ran a little long. Maybe my foot's a little smaller, but I don't know. Whatever the case is, I thought the traction was spotty, and I thought,
honestly, the undulating traction is like one cool aspect of it, but I think that's part of the reason why it's spotty. Is there's not a lot of surface area coming down on the floor. Like you have to compress that middle ridge so much to get the rest of it. that it seems a little spotty. So
yeah, I was like, I was on the fence, but it just seems like Adidas basketball in general, like kind of did their thing,
yeah, they
and
did.
then I think it's like, yeah, with the Harden, with that one, it's just this moment. I think Adidas lives for that, like the cultural moment where they're there. It's not an overly like performancey like statement.
No.
And man, it colored well. I mean, everything. I feel like everything just was
Yeah.
going their way.
I will say, like the colors they managed to pull off on that rubber piece, like that one launch colorway that was like kind of that like beetle sort of like iridescent.
Yep.
Very good. The execution on that's so good.
Yeah, and it just seems they just keep coming out with them. But at any rate, I think like when I was poring over shoes, that was the one where I was like, man, they made a really awesome shoe for a great player. It seemed to match his personality. Again, advertising.
Yeah.
I would say maybe performance wise, whatever.
Yeah.
I heard some good things from some reviewers. That's why I picked one up.
Yeah.
And then, spotty the rest. But the point is, like,
I mean,
they made a splash with that one, and
they definitely did. And
it was
don't fail to mention either that like it was actually a really good price point too.
Yeah,
like it was like $120 or something. Like so, like for Boost and for a signature athlete, and then also all of the tooling that went into like molding that those crazy pieces and all the size runs, like for 120, that's a pretty killer deal.
That's what I was gonna say too. Whoever designed it, I think I know who, but the work that went into that, like,
I don't even want to know how many. I don't want to know the person who like had to sit down and make the cam for like cutting the mold because man,
it's definitely a little bit of a feat for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know how they did it. Don't want to know, but I do want to know. Maybe we'll find out someday.
We'll have them on the pod. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Seems like we might have that poll. So, like,
reach out. Let's get you on.
Yeah. All right, Caulin.
All right.
Give us what you got.
This one has a lot less like pomp and circumstance, but my pick for 2024, complete contrast, is like pretty much just a lifestyle pick. But anyone who knows me knows I'm a huge Air Max head. Love Air Max all day, every day. So I picked the Air Sunder Max, the retro of the Air Sunder Max and the Sunset. Used to be a cross training shoe, but I mean, come on, like it's just executed so well, super comfy. It has actually like a really squishy midsole. Usually when they do these retro Air Max releases, they tend to be like not super comfy.
Yeah.
But I feel like they nailed it with this one. You just can't go wrong. I just think I've been waiting a lot of years. I've had a tab of eBay listings for the Air Sunder Max for a long time, and anyone who's been searching on eBay for a pair of Air Sunder Max knows that they go for like $500 or $600, like original pairs.
Wow.
But they all are like crumbling.
Is there something I'm missing?
They're dead. So,
like, who's the designer? Do you know?
I actually don't. That's surprising to me. I don't know the designer. I think they did a great job though. I think part of the reason why it's like I don't know the designers because it was that era in Nike and it was cross training where like they didn't really have like the names, like they weren't advertising like the names, the people who designed them. But if you're listening and you designed this shoe, first off, amazing job. Thank you so much for everything you've done for the Air Max community. Also shout out to the team who brought it back because I think they brought it back in a pretty, good way.
It's pretty vibrant. The yellow to orange.
Yeah, the dye sublimation turned out good. I think they did a great job on all the other like kind of secondary colorways they did. There's a Gore-Tex version which is pretty sweet. There's like a red Gore-Tex version that turned out being real nice. But this is like only a pick that I would do because I love Air Max.
Why is this literally just like a pick because you like it?
Yeah, dude, of course. Well, it's my top of the year. Come on.
Okay. Your top.
I'm not considering anyone else. This is me. This is my top number one pick for 2024. It's the Air Thunder Max. All right.
Okay. So
I'm not
mine
picking a
might
cultural
be more
moment.
relevant.
Yours is yes. Yours will be more clippable for sure. But for me, this is my pick. This is my pick for number one of the year.
Yeah, when I asked you, you're like easy. 2024, easy, got it. I think my favorite part is the mini swoosh.
Oh yeah.
Like the tiny
You
swoosh.
You gotta love a mini swoosh, man.
It is well positioned.
Yeah,
like,
very proportional.
I think if you were to take a like a little ruler with millimeters, I bet you find that like the spacing is like pretty well done. Like the tip of the swoosh to like where it meets, like follow that line out to the collar. I bet you like find that distance is the same as the top of the swoosh to like the top of the collar.
You want to get legit over here?
Oh man.
Let's bust out the calipers.
So not only
only the best. Man. Let's see here. Ooh, it's like 24 on the dot.
Okay, and then what's the tip of the swoosh to the top of the eye row?
Top of the eye row. Let's see.
Yep.
It's like 18 on the dot.
Man, I wonder what. Yeah, like I wonder what they like. It just seems like in space, it's got a nice little.
Yeah, little home there.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't understand the assignment.
No, you get it. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, this is my pick for 2024.
Yeah, Colin's pick for shoe of the year is a GR Nike shoe.
It's a GR retro from the 2000s that is sitting on shelves. If there was ever a shoe to encapsulate me as a person, that's it. It's just like,
hey, that's great. I'm sure it feels great with the bubble.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
There's more bubbles too. Look, 4-foot bubbles even. They're bottom loaded. What? Anyway. The traction pattern is super cool on this too, by the way. Like,
that's just like,
what is that, Braille?
Oh man, my buddy at Brooks will laugh when I say this, but that is just like, that is the most random thing. Like, that is when they could just do whatever they want. And I'm telling you, I'm going back to it again. But like, these designers at Nike back in the day, man, like,
there's a lot of Z's.
There's a lot of hand-drawn stuff.
Z's. Someone was sleeping on it. Z's.
Bet my bottom dollar someone with a Z was a part of the make of that shoe.
Oh, I hope. Anyway.
I hope, or that makes no sense. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well,
hey, whatever they hold the pen, just like you've said. They hold the pen.
True.
The designer holds the pen.
Or they hold the pencil and the markers from.
There you go. Yeah, from back in the day.
The early 2000s. Oh, brother. Well, that's great. It is nice to look at product like that because it's like, it's a little bit of a simpler time. I mean,
it was.
Yeah. Like all of that is hand drawn. Like,
yeah.
Like and those, like the dice. They look like a bunch of dice, but like those are hand drawn, man. Like,
yeah, the spacing.
Yeah.
And like getting the dots like different. They're all different sizes, especially these ones right here.
Yeah.
Smaller, larger.
It's like, it's almost, there's no rhyme or reason for a lot of it, but it's cool.
Yeah.
And it's a handcraft kind of thing.
Yeah.
Plus, there's a booty. There's probably like there's always an innovation that Nike was trying to do as well somewhere in there.
Yeah. Yeah, a little booty situation. With,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, with like the gillies don't go all the way down, but they're
dang.
Already,
it's like a whole system.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, dude.
And they were probably zipping it up to like have your laces not get in the way, and
for laces, it was a cross training shoe, I believe, back in the day.
There you
Anyway,
have it.
there it is. Thank you for letting us get our reels. Appreciate you. We can move on.
Yeah. So we will we'll make that happen. And the captions will be glorious. Great. So that's that. So in our attempt to make a footwear show podcast that is authentic and as good as helpful, part of our mission, like Caulin and I have been trying to figure out like, well, what are we trying to do here? And we decided on like, well, we want to teach, we want to help. We want to help people get a job. We want to help them get the next job and all those things. There's a lot to get into, but I think for me, like part of the reason this podcast even started is because people hit me up for little interviews all the time, and they want to know what they can do to get in and all this stuff. So what we want to start is a thing called Footwear 101. And basically what that means is, hopefully from the mouth of some awesome designers, we're going to hear, what the 101 is, like the entry level thing that people need to know to get into footwear design. And then I think even what to expect once you get in a little bit. And as I was thinking about this episode, I was like, there's just been, I don't know, there's like a lot of stuff that I feel like needs to be said. And as I'm thinking about this podcast and thinking about how I want to represent it, I'm trying to think about what people want to know. And so I told Caulin, I was like, the other night I just like got inspired and I just started ranting a note into my phone. And it became Footwear 101. And so I'm just going to kind of go through that, but it's like, I want everybody to know, like, this is how I feel. And Colin's heard it a little bit, but it's, when I sent it to him, it was in like broken English. So
yeah, the Siri talk to text. So it was a little different.
Yeah. Right. So, but no, what I want to say is, I had this thing come to me, so I'm going to refer people, like if people come to me now and ask what do I need to know? What's the advice you'd give? I'm going to point to like this part right here. So I think Footwear 101, I think it's kind of something that works like stand-up comedy, like anything you do, you need to do reps on, and you do a lot. And it's not something like footwear is not going to be something that you're going to immediately be good at. Yeah. And as I was thinking about that, I was like, well, I feel like people get told like, hey, you know what? If you want to understand what it's like to be in the food service industry, like go be a waitress, go be a waiter. You can learn a lot about people, and you can understand now when you go into a sit down restaurant what it feels like to be the staff, right?
Right.
And so I was trying to figure out what's the equivalent of that in footwear. And for me, I really feel like performance run, and I think it extends out to probably almost any performance situation. A lot of the higher like echelon performance positions are going to be given to seniors. So you're not going to there's no way you're going to hop into Adidas and immediately start designing like the $250 Predator. Like that's not going to happen. There's not a situation where, you're going to jump into like an Asics and start working on like meta stuff. You're not going to you're not going to go to Nike and immediately be on Alpha Fly. You're not going to do that. That's not how it's going to work.
Got to pay your dues.
Right. And so I'm like, okay, what you need to do is you need to seek out and don't expect you're just going to jump into Nike too. Like there's an elite group of people who can like get associate level stuff at Nike. Like you still have to be like elite to get even into that.
Yeah.
And truly, I think Nike comes to you if they want you.
Yeah.
But so the whole point of that is like, if you want to get in, and I'm talking like, if you want to understand this industry, if you want to understand like, and better yourself to the point where you can now get to the point where you can create what you want to create and see the vision through, like have confidence that you can make shoes, you need to spend like 5 years, solid 5 years, and maybe 6 or 7 years in performance run. We talked about Daniel, like Daniel did like cleated, and then he jumped over to on with tennis, still performance positions. I think you can switch around, but you need to be like in a performance position with a solid brief with like a niche consumer, and you need to be in that world trying to figure it out. And I just think that's like, you can talk about different types of performance or like footwear, like you can go into lifestyle, you can go into things, but I think like you don't really like get it until you've been like hit over the face in performance.
Performance category is really where it's like the forge, you know, because the turnaround is really quick, and it brings us back to something that Daniel said, is that these athletes only push themselves as much as they rely on their equipment. And so there's that trust with your consumer. There's like a base there that you have to build and be a part of.
Right. And when you get there, you will know how good of a problem solver you actually are.
Yeah.
And like there's competition in the space of run that you have to be keeping up with. There's competition with the consumer. There's market share. There's all these things shifting. And like when you get dropped into that, I think, you know, we're going to try our best to like make templates and stuff you can sketch on, like get your skills better. But I don't know if there's any way to teach like this part. Like you have to get through the door, like, because that's when you're going to start to be a good footwear designer. Cause you, like that's like, I don't feel like I can equip people with that. And the one thing I do want to say is like, I don't want to make this sound like I'm self-aggrandizing myself. I realize who I am. Like I very really, and Caulin knows this, we all know this, like I started in Instagram. I did not want to like make a portfolio, and I was like, I'm going to make an Instagram. I'm just going to put my stuff out there. That was just me, because I did not want to make a portfolio. Like I thought it was just, like I just felt like it was such a constrained and kind of worthless, and I like had to create stories over a PDF that like I don't know if people are going to understand. Whereas like I felt like Instagram, I could control a story immediately, tell you it, get in and get out. And so couple that with pencil, and I get a job. And I know like I'm not calling out Instagram designers, right? Like I'm not saying like you shouldn't be putting your work out. I think it's a great medium to sketch something, throw it out into the world, and see if people like it. But I will say there is a direct difference between doing that and then being a professional designer. It's not the same, like really at all. And so so it's like there's a little bit of there's like a little bit of attitude in footwear in that sense. Like I think people have a certain level that they're trying to, like, I guess like people, what I'm trying to say is like people are trying to maintain their job as well. Like not that people are trying to push you down, but I think there's a lot of that in the older days, where, you know, there's a lot of bit of that, but now I feel like it's a little more open and people are like trying to help as well. But let me, I'm going down in my notes here. Hold on.
No, you're
Oh, we
good.
might actually cut something for once.
I'm gonna say this though.
Yeah.
Something that you said to me at one point.
Yep.
I think this was a while ago. It was when we were first talking and we had first met each other. And I said something to the effect as like, "Oh, it was when I got the contract role at Kizik."
Mm,
And there was another gentleman that they were also getting a contract role for. And at this time, I thought I was going to try and go for a full-time position out of this contract.
yep.
And so that's kind of where my head was at. And I was like, oh, why are they bringing in someone else? And I was like, I told you who they were and what was going
Yep.
on. And you're like, well, like, don't worry about it. Like, their concept of what they're working on for you is different, obviously, because this guy has X amount of experience. And
Yep.
you said this part that stuck with me, which is if someone has like 6 years of experience above you, there's nothing you can do but get 6 years of experience.
Yep.
Like someone's always going to have more experience. You can't get rid of that, but you can gain more experience yourself and continue to get better.
Yep.
And so that's what you're saying here is like there's no substitute for being in the moment and in this reality and working towards it. There's only things you can learn while
Right.
you're doing this.
Like, and I guess, yeah, it's like the reality of the situation is it's like we want it to be fun. We want it to look fun. As I'm posting things, like even when I post like some of my tech pack stuff on Instagram, just know it's hard, right? Like,
Yeah.
you can be the best designer in the world, and this happens like in the footwear world all the time. Is you could have like the best design, you can draw it up, it could look good, you could present it to the wrong person at the wrong time, or your material or your first round sample could come back with the wrong material or something, and it's blown up in a minute, and you're scrambling, and then you've got to redesign.
Mm-hmm.
That happens all the time, and it's like there's nothing that I can do to prepare people for the stress and like the level of like heartache or whatever that comes. And so it's just like what I'm trying to say is like you like you can love the process, you can do all this stuff, and people can bring different things on Procreate, and I love like that people are pushing stuff on Instagram and making cool things and visualize stuff, but when you get into, again, like going back to this performance thing, like get into the performance space, stay there. That is where you get to figure out what you're made of. Because it's easy to design like a terrible running shoe. It's easy to design a terrible basketball shoe. If you're just like thinking you have it all and you can just sketch, because I'm telling you, if you're not listening to the people, you're going to make something bad. Like, that's another part of this thing. Like, I'm just trying to say, like, you come in, and if you think you've got it straight out the gate, like you're wrong. Like, I think like there's just a level of respect you need to have when you come in. That there is, I mean, not only is what is it like 100 years? I don't know how long like shoes have been being made. You know, like there's just a long list, and like people have gotten here on the backs of other people, like on the shoulders. They're standing on them. They're jumping off. They're trying to take these brands to the next level.
Yeah.
And coming from like, I'm just saying it from experience. Like I came in with that mindset that I thought I was like top dog coming into a brand, and you get humbled like pretty fast. Like, because again, like you have to listen to biomechanics. You have to listen. It's not an Instagram sketch. It's not it's not conceptual. It's real. There's a level of commercialization. There's a level of all these things. Like you quickly come down to earth. You can still design great shoes, but you are going to be in a box. And what you can do with that box, that's going to determine how far you get in your career. Like this is a career. Like
this is a professional work environment. Like you are going to be working with other people. and utilizing your creativity in a way that'll be different than if you were just doing something for yourself.
Right. And so I'm saying, like, if you want to be good at this, you need to come in, you need to be dumb, like not think if you're coming in an associate, you don't know. Like if you're coming in as a footwear 1, you still don't know. Like if you're a footwear 2, you're starting to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time you get to like senior, people expect you to know. Like there's like somehow there's like this dip, like your knowledge is here and then it goes to here.
Mm-hmm.
And then people just expect you to be all the way up here, like pretty fast. And you don't even know what's going on. Like it's just you've done enough shoes. Like your first shoe, like you might be lucky if it's decent. Your second shoe, you're lucky. Like, and if you're doing it right, like people will help guide you along and help you through it, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen the best of the best. Like I've seen people come in to footwear now as an associate, as a footwear 1, hungry and willing to learn. I've seen them come in arrogant and not willing to learn, and I've seen where it goes both ways. I've also seen how the 10 and 15 year designers look at that and say like, it's like it's a clash, right? And so what I'm saying is I've seen the best, and the best designers are not designers who have been doing it for 1 year. Like the best designers I've ever seen are 15 to 20 year designers. And that's how it is. And so there's a lot of like, I've actually been reading a book recently that's been talking about like just teaching in general. And so it's one thing like there's nothing like a teacher can do to like teach you. Like you have to be willing to educate yourself, and that's how you get taught.
Yeah.
Like I can just spill knowledge all the time on this podcast, but unless you're willing to like educate yourself, like there's nothing I can do. Like, so essentially like I'm trying to say like, this is a fun career. It is fun. It is. And I want it to be more fun. I think that's something that needs to be kind of shifted a little bit, but at the same time, like this is definitely an industry where you will pay the piper a little bit. Like, I just don't think it's avoidable. Like, so that's my Footwear 101 rant. Basically is like, if people are going to ask me what the top 3 things are, that a person trying to get in or a person on the like just getting in needs to know, like if you're a year in and 2 years in, you probably still need to work on all this stuff. And I would say number 1 is just to be a good person. Like, just like be a humble, teachable person. And then on top of that is like be a good employee, right? Like, and by good employee, I mean like you're there, you're willing to listen, you're willing to take feedback, and you don't respond harshly to criticism because you're gonna get it. I think that's the number 1. Like, I don't know if I'm missing anything on number 1, but like, I really feel like when you are just in it, you should probably be taking credit for very little. Like,
having a bit of humility there.
Right. And then, as you build up your confidence, again, like I'm saying, you got to be in it for 5 years before you really even start to like, it's like, I don't know if there is a good analogy. Like you gotta be in it and go through it to like really think, like to build the confidence to be able to speak a certain way, to confidently convince people of your ideas. I'd say the number 2 thing of Footwear 101 is know how to visually communicate and then verbally communicate.
Yeah. You have to sell your ideas.
Yeah. But it's like, I don't care how you do it, right? Like if you're going to do marker, pen, ink, paint, like I don't care what it is.
Mm-hmm.
but it needs to be clean and fluid. Like, you can't be coming up with lines that are going all over the place. Like, tell me down to the eye row, like what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like be that far in the detail, because you're gonna have to be anyway. Like, if you go into performance run again, you need to know all the running stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So be that deep. And then, have that passion when you're communicating your ideas, be able to verbally. And if public speaking is hard for you, like, that would be something I would start working on too. Like,
Yeah.
get uncomfortable. I think you've already come this far, right? If you're going for footwear,
Yeah.
you're going for a public, this is a public kind of career. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's very, like, you're going to be talking to 15, 20, 30, a whole department, 100, 150. Like, there's a lot of people.
And not all those
Yeah.
people are going to be designers. They're not all going to get, the thought process that you have. When you collaborate with another designer, there's sort of this unspoken, understanding that you have. But, something they very quickly teach you at Pencil, for example, or very quickly you'll learn if you're working and doing a presentation at a place. It's like, you are going to have to explain and communicate your idea to someone who cannot see a sketch and visualize a shoe in their hand.
Right.
Like, I know that when I sketch a shoe or when Jake sketches a shoe, it's there. He knows what it looks like. I know what it looks like. I can visualize what it would be in my hand. But there are some people that you will work with, a lot of people that you work with, that will not be able to visualize that, and you will have to do it for them.
Yep. A lot of people, like, you're thinking about, like, the level of expertise, even, like, like, some people might not even know what an outsole is. Like to the layman, like, the outsole and the midsole, like, that, those are two in the same. Like,
Yeah.
And so, like, you're going to have to learn how to teach, bring people along, and you'll figure it out along the way. But it's not like I can just go be like, oh, use this word for this. Like, it's not like I can, maybe it is something like we present like a dictionary, like, I don't know, like a footwear term, like, kind of a thing. But it is like, you do need to figure out, like, what you're doing. And, like, I think on this podcast, we've tried to be, like, I don't know, friendly, happy, because I want it to be that way. But then there is, like, I don't want to understate the level of seriousness in footwear. And then number 3, I think we've spoken to these, like, holistic things. But number 3 is just be good at Illustrator. And so,
get to know those vectors well.
Like, and again, it's one of those things where I feel like we should be like Daniel, we should be going to people and checking ourselves against, like, what's happening.
Yeah.
I think when I was in my first few years, I was pretty hesitant to present myself for open criticism. But what happened in that process was I don't think I got much better in the first couple years at Illustrator.
Yeah.
And how do I know that? Is because I can go back to the files. Like, I can open them up and look at them and realize, like, my manager was leaps and bounds ahead of me. And so you need to get deep in Illustrator, know the pen tool.
I was gonna say, the pen tool you got to master.
Yeah, and you got to know radiuses. You got to know, like, when you've messed up a line, when it's not straight, when it's not, when you're not concentric with your lines, when you do a radius and the next radius next to it doesn't relate, like, there's going to be tension. You need to know the harmony of those things. You need to know how to carry over, like, there's an energy in a sketch, like in a hand sketch, that you have to then make sure you do not lose it when you bring it over to Illustrator. That is a skill in itself. And I
Mm-hmm.
think there's some things that I can like relay that might help that process. But if you can't build like a nice vector image,
Yeah.
um, like a tight vector
Yeah.
um, shoe, then we will have a hard conversation.
Keep track of
um,
your layers because
y-
other people are going to use your files.
oh man, see, Colin knows somehow, and Colin is yeah. I would give Colin a job today for saying that. Like, um, but yeah, it's even a language you're speaking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would say a good rule of thumb is to put your artwork on one language or on
Mm-hmm.
one layer. And
Mm-hmm.
then if you're going to dimension something, if you're going to put verbiage on something, put that on a different layer.
Yeah.
So if you
Use
just want to pitch, you can
mhm.
in an instant snap
Turn
all
off.
that junk off and just have your beautiful shoe,
Yeah.
and then you can snap it back on.
Don't be shy about locking layers too, you know?
Oh yeah.
Like when I sent my color material designer stuff, I was always locking the texture layers because the textures would show through for things like you don't need to color up the textures; they're fine.
Yep.
So
Yeah, man, lock it up. And it's nice because some people don't know how to unlock it. You know,
it is
so,
nice. I will say, like my first experience, I know this because one of our mutual friends, Wade,
yep.
at Purple, he sent me a file once for me to do some stuff to, and I was like, "Why can't I grab this thing? Why can't I grab this thing?" And then I was like, "Oh, he locked the layer. That's
Oh
so
yeah.
smart." And Wade was always really good about making sure his layers were like dialed.
Yeah. It, it's like a level of professionalism, and I think you just like kind of get it as you go. Um, it was funny. Like my manager was like, "Your Illustrator layers are not good," and he was kind of generalizing it to like the whole footwear design group.
Yeah.
And I never stopped to think, is he talking about me? And one time I was like, we had that meeting and he was hitting on it again. And I was like, man, why does he keep hitting on this? And I finally had the guts to say like, is it me? And I went to him after and I'm like, hey dude, like, you talking about me? And he's like, I'm talking about everybody, but I'm talking about you. And we sat down and he was like, look at all this junk that you got on this layer. And look at all this junk you got on this layer. Like, he's like,
Misplaced
no, man. He's like, clean
misplaced
all that
points and
crap up.
anchors. Clean it out.
Yeah.
So
And I
good.
was like, crap. And it's just a thing. And so I think, you need to, I think that's a big key if you're coming in. Being able to carry a sketch to Illustrator is like a whole skill.
Mhm.
Being able to Illustrator render is also another skill. But just Illustrator itself, I think, is like kind of the hub
Yeah.
because all your tech packs are going to be in Illustrator. I don't care how good of a three-dimensional shoe you can make. At the end of the day, you're going to be an Illustrator. So like,
Yeah.
if there's like anything that's a footwear 101, like being just a boss at Illustrator is going to
Mhm.
be your best friend.
Yeah, I've met a few like really talented designers, like sketchers over the years that
Yeah.
like if you don't jump into Illustrator soon, like when you first are starting this, it
Yeah.
will quickly become a hindrance to your ability to work.
Right.
Um, because if you're getting too used to just the hand sketching movements and everything, you will feel like you're not able to do anything in Illustrator because there is a learning curve. Um,
Oh yeah.
and so, it just comes with time. It's just like everything else. It comes with
Yep.
time. You can't
Like
get away from the time of experience.
a good practice would be to take a sketch that you've done and put it in Illustrator and try to make it
Yeah.
just like the sketch. Like even try that.
With
Um,
as little anchor points as possible.
yeah. Yeah. When you get to a radius, tighten it up. I
Yep.
think you can do two anchors and make a nice radius. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, uh, more to come on that, but I just think like if I had to give you footwear people, designers who want to get in, if I had to give you three things, number one, just be a generally easygoing person.
Yeah.
Be the person that people want to work with. Be the one that when it's a rainy day or it's whatever, you're coming in with a smile on your face, ready to go. Be a light, right? Like, don't come in and just grumble and hate your life and all that stuff. That's what I'm talking about when I mean be a good person. When I mean be a good employee is when you come in, recognize that you're at the bottom of the barrel and come in wanting to learn from these giants.
Yeah.
Because like I'm saying, like, the people you will meet have been doing this for a long time and they have seen it. Like, trust me, they have seen it. And so if you come in thinking, I just want to learn everything I can, especially when you're an associate or a Footwear One, when you don't have like the crushing weight of like $100 million shoes, like, enjoy it and like take the time. And that's also the time when you're probably going to get like, you know, lower price point stuff or whatever the thing is, but take those projects, love them, and then push them as hard as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And I think that's how you set yourself up. Like, don't come in with like, you know, like false valor or like, you know, this, like, even I would say, like, even if you're coming into a company from a different company, like maybe this isn't your first footwear job, but like a good coworker, a good employee is like, if you're coming in thinking you're going to change the world at a brand, like, that is just not it. Like, or if you think that, like, I don't know, it's just, I almost feel like any kind of, I don't know, like, if you think you've come in and you have the answers, like, you probably don't have the answers. Like, the best people I know aren't vocal. Like,
have a beginner mindset.
Yes.
Push where you can. Push where you can. Have that beginner mindset.
Yeah. Again, then know how to visually communicate and verbally communicate. Hopefully, if you are like trying to nail number one, number two is like coming along. And if you're like me on Instagram and you're sketching stuff and trying to make it really compelling, like, visually communicating is probably working out. Then you just got to back it up with good verbal stuff. And then number three, that's the hard skill. Get good at Illustrator.
Yep.
I think that's like my three things. Like, I was trying really hard to think, what is Footwear 101?
Yeah.
And I was pointing out a lot of things. Like, I know that's not it. Like, like, I know things that you shouldn't be doing. And maybe that's the things that, you know, should form 101, because again, it is an industry there is a certain level of pomp, and we want to get rid of that. Like,
yeah,
I think even when we get up to like director level, I think the higher you go, maybe the more humble you should be. The more helpful you should be, because you've been through it. Hopefully you've been through it and you don't want to see others go through it. You know, like, you want to be there. Yeah. I think those are the best leaders, are the ones who, and the ones that appreciate what you're bringing to the table, because albeit if you're a beginner, and I hope people have made it this far in the episode, but if you are a beginner, I still firmly believe that you have like this there's a bud of strength and like creativity that's coming in that is found nowhere else. And certainly if someone's willing to invest in you, again, like, that's huge. Like,
yeah,
which is 100% the reason why you should do 1, 2, and 3 is like,
yeah.
Is like, you're an investment and you're a ball of creativity that I think is irreplaceable. So, you know, treat it like with such respect, right? Like, sure, it's a paycheck, but like, think of all the people now that are going to wear you know, like, mixed with a brand, and there's this concoction of these things, but you are going to be like part of people's lives that you never thought possible. So have like a little respect for the game, like, for
People are going to be
the,
able to push their sport. They're
yeah,
going to be able to better themselves or be
right.
comfortable at work or whatever it is, right?
Yep.
It's a big responsibility to have.
Yeah. And I truly believe, I mean, outside of like maybe like the MD side where these people are trying to make sure biomechanically that like things are sound, I think designer has the hardest job. Like you are the meeting point of
Mm-hmm.
all of these things.
Yeah.
And you have to sift through all the voices, and it's really tough. So take care of 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
So that you can be the best possible designer you can be. And maybe got it. Maybe I just thought of number 4. Be
Lay it on
willing
us.
to accept critique.
Yeah.
I think that would be, I don't know, it's up there.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we'll not generalize number 1 as much as just be a good person, but it just feels like you need to be a certain level of person to be in this position.
Yeah.
No one wants to work with a designer who sucks, but all right. I don't know. Is that good, Colin?
That's good.
Okay.
I like it.
Um,
Yeah, I think you nailed it. If you are an associate or a designer 1, you already did a lot of really, really hard work to get there. So none of this is to say that that's not valuable and not true. You definitely worked really hard to get where you're at. But you have a lot of learning to do as well, right?
Yeah.
So for those of us who are beginners, just a spring chicken,
Yeah.
having the beginner mindset is everything. Learning and growing from the people who have done it far before you, and then pushing where you can. We talked about this earlier in the episode, and this might be a nice closeout. As designers, we're tasked with, doing everything, being able to apply ourselves to each aspect of what we're working on. And so if you can come in and be a beginner and gain knowledge as you go, and kind of understand where the gray areas are and push and pull things while being kind of a person with humility and understanding and being a beginner, you're going to produce great work.
Yeah. I think you said too, like, enough to be dangerous. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, get that deep in, that enough to be dangerous, then you're not going to, make something that's going to wreck people.
Exactly.
And I would say, like, part of this podcast that I've been talking about with people, and another reason for this whole like Footwear 101 thing is like, I don't think I could have started this podcast at any other point in my career except for right now.
Yeah.
Having like managed through myself being an associate Footwear 1, Footwear 2, and then landing a senior role. The moment I became a senior was when I negotiated that contract.
Yeah.
The situation, like just I feel like that's when it happened. And so it's like, there was a lot of growing up that happened really fast.
Yeah.
But the point is, like, I don't think I could start a podcast without having that authenticity. So I'm hoping that me having gone through it is enough of a stamp of approval.
All of this advice is lived experience for you.
Yeah, that this is going to help, that this is real. Yeah. So when we say text pack should do, hopefully that stamp, like you see that, like we are trying to give you the best possible thing, the clearest possible take on footwear that I can possibly give you.
Yeah.
And hopefully also, like, it's just a thing in footwear. Like, hopefully when I'm coming up to guests, having that title a little bit helps kind of unlock these doors so that I can get people in here that you want to hear from, right? Like you want to hear from these people. So hopefully that alone, I can use that as the unlock to make this show like like almost as masterclass as possible. And so tech packs are due to the moon. Like we're trying. Again, hopefully like I know the people who've put some time in, and I really want them to come on. And I think people are starting to warm up to that. They're seeing what we're producing. They're excited about it. And we're just going to keep rocking it.
Absolutely.
So that's it. I mean, Footwear 101 is a concept we're going to keep working through. We're going to keep pushing it.
I think it'd be great to hear from our guests that we have on what their maybe 2 or 3 mark, 101 synopsis would be as well. Advice that they give.
We're going to get it. So like, not that I don't want you to reach out to these people and
we do
and get them to talk to you one-on-one, but I do want to have a place where you can come and review episodes. If you're hitting a snag and you're like, well, what else can I do? Hopefully you can go back to Daniel's episode and be like, oh, I can do this. Or maybe you get funky and you go all the way back to Brian Knutson and listen to him talk about stuff.
Get a card game going.
Yeah, well, I mean, he has a lot of
Don't tell anybody
expertise.
your idea.
Yeah. 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 We'll have to get Brian back on to talk about more creativity because the guy's unlimited. But, the point is like, I want the people to have something that they can come back to and review it. Time and time again. Hopefully we're making timeless content that whether you're listening to this 5 years from now, you stumble upon us, you realize that like we're trying to give you things that will excel your career. I think some of this stuff would help anybody. So there you have it. The newest, freshest episode of 2025. The first one for us.
Yeah,
second
first host one. Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna stay in your ears. Hopefully we have guests lined up, and we're pretty excited about them. I hope you guys will be too.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, I mean, the texts that Caulin and I have been sending between each other, we think good times are ahead.
We've got some big plans for the year.
Yeah, and so I'm working on tutorials as we speak. Working on all kinds of stuff, so it'll be fun. That's it.
Perfect. Tech packs are due.
Tech packs are due. We'll be continuing on and on.
All right.
All right. Well, catch us next time. I don't have anything to preview, so next episode will just be what it is.
It's a mystery.
All right. We will see you next time.